Hey friends, I must briefly apologize for my lack of updates lately. I'm right in the middle of a PhD program, and so I hope people understand that I'm slightly swamped. Anyways, chemtrails. It's sort of late for a yearly update, but I really think that we've all made great progress over the last year. A lot of people became aware of the chemtrail problem, and I think that our educational campaign must continue. I do think that we need to shift our focus now. We need so-called empirical evidence to help back up our arguments. What we have now is not convincing the hardline skeptics and, the scientific skeptics and whatnot. Even though, like, in the government documentation and research literature, it's quite evident that this technology exists. But we have to prove that it's being used covertly, and this is where the problem lies. So, to do this, I propose that we obtain air, soil, and water samples on as global a scale as possible. We've all made a lot of connections throughout the world, and now is the time to put these networks to use. So here's what I suggest. And this is by no means my original idea. This is the product of all the wonderful people who are working together to expose this program. So step 1, we need to test the water, soil, and air for contaminants from chemtrails. And we'll also have to determine if we need to do the physical testing ourselves, or if we can, obtain access to local records, because I'm pretty sure governments collect this information. But the question is, what are they testing for? Is it going to suit our purposes? And will we have access to those records? So that's step 1. Step 2 will be to gather this information to test a hypothesis that, heavy metals and polymer fibers and other bizarre, unknown materials are increasing over the last, decade or two as a result of the chemtrail program. So if the tests show that, aluminium and barium have skyrocketed and there's no, reasonable explanation for this, then we're going to have to, argue that this is because of the chemtrail program. So then step 3, we will use this information to irrefutably prove that chemtrails and atmospheric experiments are occurring. And hopefully this will really help to mobilize some serious international political opposition. So these are sort of like the 3 steps that I've been kind of mulling over in my head over the last few months. And just some final points I'd like to make before I finish up this video. I really think that our testing methodology has to be solid. So, for example, in a large country like Canada, where I'm located, well, we'd have to do several tests across, the geographical space. So, for example, maybe have a testing group in British Columbia, one on the prairies, one in the Northern Territories, one in Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces, and so on. So for large countries like, Canada, Russia, Australia, China, we would need multiple teams. In smaller countries, we might get away with only testing 1 or 2 locations. But basically, if you test multiple sites, in theory, if we find contamination across the board, then that's really strong evidence that something is going on. So that's kind of the motivation behind this proposition. Our methodology also has to be done in a way that can be replicated by the scientific community. I don't think this is a problem. It's quite easy to collect water and air samples. But we have to be really careful that we aren't implicated in contaminating the samples that we collect. So we'll have to do it in a way that is sterile, etc. We'll have to look into that further. Hopefully, a lot of places might have access to records where the governments are, testing for this information, and we won't have to spend valuable time and money, doing it ourselves. So as I said, we might not have to collect the samples ourselves, but a lot of this is going to be collecting the information, gaining access, and then, planning it and putting it together in a coherent way. And I think this is just, we're reaching critical mass, and it's a great time to start doing this. I've built up a lot of networks here in Canada and abroad, and I think, everyone else has too, and everyone's really fantastic, and I say, let's get going on this. So essentially, it's just about collecting the information together in a way that's difficult to debunk. And that way it must be taken seriously, and I think that we've been doing a great job so far. but let's kick it up a notch, you know? And so right now we're currently just in the brainstorming phase. I reach out to my allies and opponents alike. Please comment, share this video, talk about it. What is wrong with this methodology? How could it be challenged and critiqued? How could it be improved? Are there other ways that we could go about getting this information? All suggestions are very valuable. All criticisms will be taken, and seriously considered. So, throw it at us. So we're in the brainstorming phase, and we'll be moving on to organizing and planning shortly. So, contribute and get involved. Okay. Well, it was nice to chat with you all again. Take care, everyone, and keep up the excellent work. Thank you.